page 6. There were changes in personnel during this period. A cadre was formed from this unit and dispatched to Camp Maxey, Texas, to activate the 974th Engineers Maintenance Company. The cadre consisted of the following men: 974th Engineers Maintenance Company Cadre. Tech Sergeant Galen Durdoff. Staff Sergeant Joseph 5 Powers. Staff Sergeant Borge Thompson. Tech 4 Palmer A. Duckworth. Tech 5 Oza Carroll. Corporal Thomas Carnes. Private First Class Harold Jockola. Private First Class Ivering B. Schwartz. Private First Class David Keisterson. One man, who was transferred into our unit on the 13th of November, 1943, Schuer made the entire unit sit up and smack their lips, for he was none other than the new mess sergeant, Staff Sergeant Bernice Bettis. He arrived just in time to plan and prepare the unit's first Thanksgiving dinner, and a delightful dish it turned out to be. On the 15th of December 1943, the day for the unit's move to Camp Shanks, New York, we boarded the troop train that was to carry us the width of our country once more. This time the unit traveled the northern route, the route passing through the states of California, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado, Kansas, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana, Ohio, Pennsylvania, and New York. This move seemed more dramatic than the last one, for here we dealt in the realm of secrecy, and as might have been seen in a movie. Here was the picture. 9:30 in the evening, we marched to a train through a black rainy night with full field equipment on our bended backs. Thoroughly soaked, a silence that seemed strange to all came over the unit while waiting to be put aboard the train. Even the train's engine seemed to be aware of the secret, as it stood by softly panting. Eventually, after the usual military delay, the men were settled down in their berths, and in this manner did we say goodbye to a California that had dealt with us so kindly. So now let us take a closer look at Camp Young, and the areas that made up the desert training areas for so many Army units at the beginning of World War II. Camp Young, one of the many historical Army posts located in California. It was known as the California and Arizona Maneuvering Areas Desert Training Center. This was the largest Army base in the world, covering some 18,000 square miles. It stretched from the outskirts of Pomona, California eastward to within 50 miles of Phoenix, Arizona, southward to the suburbs of Yuma, Arizona, and northward into the southern tip of Nevada. It existed primarily to train U.S. forces in desert warfare for the North African Campaign. Native Californian Major General George Patton, Jr., commander of the 1st Armored Corps, was responsible for selecting this site in early 1942. Camp Young were the administrative headquarters and the focal point of the maneuvering area for General Patton's 3rd Armored Division, and was one of 12 sites within this vast complex. The area chosen in the Mojave Desert was ultimately 350 miles wide and 250 miles deep. At that time the training base was called Desert Training Center, and it had not yet reached its maximum size. 6 months later it was given the name, the California Maneuvering Area, or CAMA, and by November 1943 it had reached its maximum size after several expansions. When the Allied victory came in North Africa, the need for desert train units faded, and in May 1944, CAMA was closed. Most of the sites can be visited, but some are difficult to reach. In most cases the only things that remain at the campsites are streets, sidewalks, building foundations, patterns of hand-laid rocks for various purposes, and trash dumps. Monuments have been erected at some of the campsites, and there are areas within CAMA that are fenced off with danger signs warning of unexploded ordnance. One of these monuments marks the former site of Camp Young, so let us now visit that monument, and see what it looks like today. This monument is located at the former site of Camp Young. The monument inscription reads as follows: Camp Young. Headquarters Desert Training Center, California, Arizona, Maneuvering Area. Camp Young is named after Lieutenant S.B. Young, the first Army Chief of Staff, was established at this site in the spring of 1942. It was one of 12 such camps built in the southwestern deserts, to harden and train United States troops for service on battlefields of World War II. It was selected by General George S. Patton, Jr., as the administrative headquarters for the Desert Training Center, a simulated theater of operations that included portions of California, Arizona and Nevada. A total of 13 infantry divisions and 8 armored divisions, plus numerous smaller units, were trained in this harsh environment. The training center was in operation for almost 2 years, and was closed in early 1944, when the last units were shipped out, overseas. During the brief period of operations, over 1 million Americans were trained for combat. This monument is dedicated to all the soldiers that served here, especially for those who gave their lives in battle for ending the Holocaust and defeating the armed forces of Nazi Germany, Fascist Italy, and Imperial Japan. Now let us continue with Lieutenant Booth's company history on page 6. A fast trip of 4 days' duration brought the company to Camp Shanks, New York. Arriving in the early morning on the 20th of December 1943, the unit detrained and marched from the siding to our assigned area, and were immediately served a hot breakfast, for which we were thankful. The changes in the climate affected the majority of the men, for here in New York, it was colder and damper than our previous station. Processing of the unit and individual equipment was completed in 24 hours after arrival, and all that remained was to wait for boat time. Our stay at Camp Shanks was short, but pleasant, for the majority of the men were near enough to their homes to visit their families before leaving for overseas. Orders arrived at last, and the authority for the move overseas was contained in paragraph 9, Special Order number 340, Headquarters, Camp Shanks Branch, New York, Place of Embarkation, Date, 26 December 1943. A summary of the 965th Engineers deployments within the United States were: they were activated on the 3rd of March 1943 at Camp Shelby, Mississippi. 24 July 1943 the unit left Camp Shelby, Mississippi for Base General Depot, San Bernardino, California on a 3,000-mile journey. They took the southern route by train crossing Louisiana, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona and California. The unit was split up into 3 separate convoys, to prepare living quarters under canvas, and to train and perform maintenance on equipment within their respective locations. In early October, the entire units left Base General Depot, San Bernardino, California for Camp Young, California for movements overseas. In early November 1943, the entire units left Camp Young traveling in one convoy, and returned to Base General Depot, to complete the preparation for movement to the port of embarkation. On the 15 December 1943, they left Base General Depot for Camp Shanks, New York. The unit boarded troop trains, which carried the troops on the northern route to Camp Shanks. The unit arrived at Camp Shanks on 20 December 1943. On the 26 December 1943, orders were received for reassignment to England, to prepare for D-Day. On the 27th December 1943, the unit was moved by train to the English-owned ship, the Dominion Monarch. The unit's personnel and equipment were loaded that day and night, and the following morning they sailed to England. So the 965th Engineers spent a total of 10 months in the United States training. Now they were heading overseas for destinations unknown to them, and to an uncertain future.